Hello again, friends. Today I'm going to talk about another Cat Butler adaptation. After messing around with Blouse and Beast Deities, I decided to try the deck with Raizers. I've made a few observations about Raizers and how useful they can be to the Cat Butler engine. In comparison to the heavy beaters of Jack and Cut Bowler, high-powered Raizer Custom is every bit their equal as a Vanguard. He is 16k unboosted, which means that while he's weaker than his competition for one swing, he's stronger on the other. He is also the only adaptation of the build that can force out 15k shield on every single attack with just a single trigger. His only weaknesses are that you have to run one less critical trigger, which really doesn't matter. You have more 8k rearguards than you'd prefer to have because you aren't running more than one battle Raizer, and if you do use the boost to push for an extra stage, you shuffle the only thing making this tactic viable into your deck. That means that this deck is also shut down way harder by back row retirement. There is one more unit that I'd like to discuss, and that's Kungfu Kid Bolta. Bolta swings for 11,000 if you have more rearguards than your opponent. There's really no way that you're not going to have more rearguards than your opponent unless you got field wiped or they're playing Liberator Garmor. Bolta is inferior to Jack in pretty much every aspect, except he doesn't need a counterblast. You can still run them together, which will give you 8 potential rearguard units that can make 16k with your Cat Butlers, and that's pretty nice. So this is pretty close to the ideal situation for this deck. My opponent doesn't have enough shield to guard my Vanguard this turn because it would require 45,000 shield spread over 3 attacks to no-pass me if I don't hit any triggers. My hitting a trigger is the only way that I can win anyway. They can't guard me if I do hit a trigger, and since they're at 4, they choose to no-guard my deck with 15 criticals in it and pray. Now, while this deck is weaker than the other decks overall, I do feel like it has a better final turn push when you have your setup. So let's do the math and figure out how many cards would have been forced if my opponent was at 5 damage and needed to guard all of my attacks to live. My first 2 rearguard attacks would have been 5k apiece because I didn't really get any grade 2s that game. So that would have been 2 cards, 10k shield so far. They would have had to drop 15k to no pass my Vanguard's attack in order to stop that first critical trigger. And then they would have had to drop 15k to 1 to pass the second attack and 20k to 1 to pass the third attack, or drop a null guard on that last one. This comes out to a total of 8 cards in hand that they would have had to drop in order to survive this turn without taking a 6 damage heal. And even then, they would have taken 2 damage for my Vanguard if they had taken that hit because of the criticals.